What is happening, guys? Today we are going over to see your favorite engine builder, Mr. Ronnie Built. He's pulling off the head off the 4G again. He will explain in better detail why that's happening, but I'm gonna make a quick pit stop. Quick pit stop to Starbucks because Ronnie and I are both basic white girls. Alright, so we're here, your favorite Evo. Again, yeah. What are we doing today?
Well, today, so what happened is that coolant situation started getting a little bit worse. So it's not lifting the head now, but it's pushing coolant. So the head gasket gets compromised somewhere. Probably near a coolant jacket. It's not sealing up the way it needs to. I actually tried to go a little higher on the torque, but it didn't really help. So I gotta pull it and I gotta address it properly. Oring it this time. And what I'm gonna end up doing is we're probably gonna take out like 2 or 3 degrees of ignition timing and just add a little bit of boost, because I feel like the cylinder pressures are just too high for my setup, because this is almost 11-to-1 compression motor. So yeah, the fuel's great, that it doesn't detonate or anything, but there's just too much pressure for it to handle on these studs and like the setup that I have. I mean, it ran great and everything, but it started pushing a little bit of more coolant. And when I say pushing, what I'm saying is, oh, by the way, I didn't even change the cap. I didn't even bother because I started figuring out something's going on. What I mean by that is, like, it would start, there would be a lot of pressure in the cooling system, and it would actually overcome this, and it would start pushing it to the reservoir. And then, once you do a few pulls and this thing gets filled up, it starts spraying out. You get what I mean? So it goes on your tire and shit starts smoking, and you're like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah.
And the last pull I did, it was 3 days ago. My buddy came over and it was like 40 degrees outside, so we took the car out and I did a 1st through 4th pull, and actually, I shit you not, until the top of 3rd the car was spinning, and then 4th hooked and I punched it and I was going like a $140 here. I shouldn't say that, but came home, shut it off, and I'm like, what the fuck? Why is there coolant in the back? And I looked, and sure enough, like, there's for the 8s and 9s, there's a water pipe that has an O-ring on it. Goes inside the water pump. The pressure actually pushed out through there. So I was like, fuck, man, I gotta address it now. Like, I gotta fucking figure this shit out, because, like, you can drive it around, nothing happens, but every time you get on it, it starts pushing coolant. It defeats the purpose of a fucking race car. You know what I mean? Because it's not really a race car if you can't, get on it and be sure that nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah, you can't use it.
Yeah, the whole point of like everything we try to do is so we can use it properly. So, I'm gonna take it off, look at it, see what's what. We're gonna reuse the studs, but I'm probably gonna put a little bit more torque to it. Again, this isn't normal. I mean, you don't see people doing like this setup every day, so it's not like you can go on the forums and ask for help or anything, because that's a lot of fucking boost, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's just, the O-ring should have been done from before. I didn't do it, and it kind of bit me. And again, I do think it's a little too much timing for it. I think it makes like 580 foot-pounds of torque on our dyno.
That's crazy. On a stock transmission too.
On a stock transmission, 130,000 miles. When John was tuning it, he was texting Alex like, "Hey, what kind of transmission does Ronnie have? This is the smoothest fucking transmission I've ever felt. 130,000 miles on it, dude. I shit you not, bro. Quartermaster is taking it like a boss." So yeah, we're just gonna pull the turbo kit. I mean, this is like the easiest cylinder head removal there is on these, because there's like no bracket on the back of the intake manifold. All I have to do is undo the piping, take off the catch can, take off the turbo kit, like slack the timing belt, zip tie the gears, take the cam gears off, and fucking pull it out. It's pretty straightforward. It takes me an hour to do this. I've done this a lot. It takes a little longer if it's a stock car, because there's a bunch of other shit that you gotta take off.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bracket. Anybody that's done an Evo 8-9 intake or cylinder head or intake manifold removal, there's a fucking bracket in the back that has 4 14mm bolts. It's a bitch to get to. It's a bitch to get to. So I don't have that because race car. Yeah, everything else is good. I think what I'm gonna do actually is, if I pull the head off, I'm gonna just let it sit for a few weeks, and I'm actually gonna try to go with like a Super 99 or something. So get rid of this radiator, get a half rat, get like completely remove the condenser and everything, I wish I could do half-inch studs in the car. I can't really do it. I mean, you can, but you probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot of metal.
That is.
You know. But you know, we're gonna try to work with what we have, and I know for a fact that if we pull a few degrees of timing, what it'll do is it'll become a little bit lazier. Like the power will come in a little later.
Mm-hmm.
But you can compensate for that and like add a little bit of boost up top.
Yeah.
And another thing is this thing, like 5500 when it comes on, it's holding a steady 45 psi. A steady 45 psi. So
It doesn't taper.
it doesn't taper, and it doesn't like, it's not like a gradual, you know, like some Evos, like you'll sit in it and it's like no power, and then it just fucking comes on and then it's like 2 seconds and then you gotta fucking shift.
Yeah.
The bad thing about that is extreme cylinder pressures, because you know it's like it fucking skyrockets for a split second.
Yeah.
55 pounds of boost. I mean, depending on what setup it is. But mine is like a fucking. I mean, Jeff actually had a 6870 Evo, 43 pounds. He had a similar setup to what I was describing. Like, you know, it would just like fucking peak, and then it would just like, you know what I mean? Like it would be like a fucking not a nice gradual like slope. It would just be like, oh my fucking god, and then you would have to shift. I think we're gonna do something similar to that this time around, because it's just too much. I don't think, like, with the mechanical stuff that I have in here, with like the head studs and everything, it doesn't like it.
Yeah.
It doesn't like it. Like, I don't know how else to fucking go around it.
Mm-hmm.
It just has to be like, we gotta take a few degrees of ignition timing out, and we gotta add a little bit of boost up top. And nothing wrong with that. Up top, it's still gonna make power, maybe even more power. But yeah, if I go with a bigger turbo, then I can actually, you know, throw a little bit more boost at it. But at the same time, like, honestly, like, I've been thinking about it, and I'm trying to play it a little safe. So, again, if I try to throw 52 pounds of boost at it, I don't think it's going to be my benefit, you know what I mean, since I'm already having cylinder head lift issues.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that may very well be causing it is these heads will actually get softer. If it keeps on flexing, it'll get softer. So if you had a virgin head and you had like a used head that's been ported or whatever, and it's been ran for like a few thousand miles,
right,
like, the material is actually softer. Like your machinist will have like this thing that, like, I forgot what the tool's called, not a profiling or something else. They put it on there and it basically tells you like the hardness of the surface. And the virgin head will be perfectly hard. And oh, that sounds kind of weird. But like, you take this head for instance, or like my used heads over there, and they were like, I took it to D-Sport and Mike was checking, and they're all trash. Like, it gets so soft. When that happens, the head gasket gets compromised again. You get what I mean? Like, it just doesn't. If it's like a 500, 600 horsepower application, it won't be an issue. Like, all these issues are associated with the fucking amount of power we're making. You know what I mean? It's not a fucking world record Evo, but it's still a lot of fucking power in a, you know, 4-cylinder. I mean, a lot of boost, a lot of fucking pressure. So, you know, we're trying to overcome all that, and, you know, fixing stuff, making them better as we go. So, you know, this is a part of it. Another project we're working on right now is this man's Evo is gonna get built very soon, and I'm starting to take his old block apart, and we have some crazy plans for it. That should be a whole other video by itself, but that thing will make at least 1,000 to the wheels, at least. Like, we're gonna go crazy with Jeff's Evo. And it's already in the works, all the parts are ordered. It's not a basic build, half-inch studs, some crazy stuff we're doing to it. But that's gonna be soon, so we'll do a video on that soon. His head's actually cracked too. Let me show you. So I don't know if you guys remember, but like from the other videos, like this is my old head, right? You see how it's cracked over there?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
You see that, right? This
yeah.
is, we showed this like in 4 videos, and this is my other head that I used that got torched, and this thing, same thing happened. Like, I don't know if you can see it, but oh, it's over there, cracked, the same spot, right?
Yeah.
Over here, this is Jeff's. This hasn't made a lot of power. This thing probably made like 350 to the wheels or something, right? It wasn't making that much. So look over here. I was actually looking at it and I'm like, Jeff, come check this out. I'm like, I've seen this before. There's cracks right there and right there.
Oh man.
Yeah. Okay. This is an O-ringed head. This made 750 on a Mustang dyno. This minutely bent intake valves, that's why we have it off. It's actually my friend's. This has no cracks whatsoever. So the O-ring definitely does help.
Yeah.
And this head wasn't in the best condition. I mean, you can see something's been fucking flopping around in there in the past. Either that or that's like detonation damage that pitted the chamber. But as you can see, no crazy I mean, nothing's been done to the combustion chambers. This is stock. And as you can see, there's no cracks. So the O-ring definitely helps it not flex. So we just got to figure out, you know, how to properly O-ring it. Probably gonna take it to D-Sport because Mike's done O-rings on these motors before, and you know, I just wanna, I gotta take care of it somehow, you know.
Mm-hmm. When you just have a barrel of E90 Ignite Red in your garage, this thing's ridiculous.
A lot of money, bro. Put that in your motor first. Trust me, it's gonna start getting overwhelming. It's a lot of money.
If you guys notice, Ronnie has a GoPro on his head. He's starting a channel very soon. As much requested, everyone keeps messaging me for him to start a channel. Now he's doing it. He's got the head mount.
Trying to be all legit. I actually shot a video the other day of my car, like doing the pull in my car, and the mount was like pointed upwards, and every time I did a pull, it like punched me back. So you can just see the ceiling. And now I'm taking it off, and this time with a lot of power. I'm not just saying that, I mean it. A week worth of fucking blow by. I probably shouldn't do that there.
More progress has been made. Catch cans off, turbo kit's off with the manifold. Got the CSF radiator out. Ronnie also used a little tension release. I probably said that wrong. This little tool here that goes in there loosens the belt tension. He's got it zip tied so everything's in place. Also got the little bungee cord set up to also further help hold the belt. And we were going to find out if the bottom end is okay. He thinks that, I didn't really mention it, but as he was explaining earlier about the cooling gain push from the radiator over to the overflow and then filling up the overflow and like spraying out the car and everything, he thinks there might be a chance that it might have literally ran out of coolant and that he might have ran it dry. And he's going to find out if the cylinder walls are scarred or anything because of the fact that it was dry. He said if it did run dry and he has to take the bottom end out, he's going to go full retard on it this time. And also, we're going to find out why this car keeps having so many head issues. The head is going to get O-ringed, like you said. We're going to find out why the heads keep cracking. I don't know if it's a problem with 4Gs. We'll find out. I'll let Ronnie explain it. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Alright, so the bottom end is fucking great again. You know, I didn't think anything was gonna happen anyway because it wasn't detonation or anything that caused this. But as you guys can see over here, on every single cylinder, the head was flexing like this. On every single cylinder, just the minute amount. But you can see these are the coolant jackets, and you can see this is combustion residue. So you can see it's going in the coolant ports. So that's what was causing the coolant to basically get pushed, and this was happening on the dyno and off the dyno, so it's been happening ever since. And the head stayed on. The head looks okay. Well, it's actually starting to crack again at the same spot. So I have 4 heads here. I have 5 heads here. 4 of them without the O-ring, they're all cracked in the same areas. So the one that's O-ring is not cracked, and that thing's seen about 50 pounds of boost. So that proves that the O-ring works, and that's what we're gonna have to do, because without the O-ring, with the amount of timing and amount of boost that we're throwing at it, the fuel is okay, but the mechanical portion of the car just can't keep up, I guess. So, you know, we're gonna O-ring it. I know this is like the 10th time I'm saying this, but we're actually gonna fucking O-ring it. I'm not listening to my machine shop's advice anymore. I'm listening to my advice. We're gonna O-ring it, and then you know, get a new gasket, copper spray it. So I never copper spray gaskets. This is gonna be the first time. You know, basically the metal, the copper spray is like it's basically like liquid metal. it's liquid copper, right?
Yeah.
When you spray it on there, if you get a nice coat going, it's a very malleable metal, the copper is. So what that means is, it doesn't matter like how rough your block is gonna be or your cylinder head's gonna be. It's malleable, like it'll actually adapt to the surface, so it'll actually like basically like push into the pores or any imperfections that you may have. So we're gonna do that, and I'm gonna try to torque it to like 150 or 120 foot-pounds or something like that. And yeah, see what it does. Same spot. Come here, let me show you this. You guys can see it's not flexing as bad as the other one did, but that's a crack. I don't know if you can see that, but that's a minute crack.
Yeah, you can see it. And
this is not even using a dye or anything like that. This is just a naked eye. But you can see in the combustion chambers, it's easy to spot cracks. This one has it too, a 1 in 4 thing. And it doesn't help that it's a, it's a head that's been milled down so much, so it's been in use for quite a while. I mean, God knows how many thousand miles this has. Again, you can resurface it, you can make it look nice and clean, but you really don't know how soft metal is unless you actually test it, which is something that we didn't do on this head. It did what it was supposed to do, but it was obviously flexing. Now the O-ring would help, but again, I think it was just, I'm thinking it's just too much pressure in the cylinders. Like, as you can see, the bottom end is perfect, the walls are perfect, the piston tops are perfect, which means the fuel that we're using, we're not getting any knock. Obviously, we're using, it's just the head's flexing. Like, that's been my problem since day one. But we're gonna address it. Like, I don't know if you got this, but yeah, you can see the combustion gases are, pushing the head up, flexing the head and going into the coolant ports. But you can see the firing of the gasket made a nice imprint over here. The gasket is doing its job. The Cosworth gasket is doing its job. It's a very good gasket. And really, any other gasket you get with a nice fire ring will do the same thing. This thing has a folded stepper like we talked about, so it acts as an O-ring. But you can still put an O-ring, but it would have to be, the problem is we have to make it so that the head O-ring sits like outside of the O-ring of the gasket. Does that make sense? So you have two O-rings, but they're not on top of each other. They're next to each other.
Yeah, so it seals. So it seals.
And once you have that O-ring, what it does is it actually like keeps the head perfectly flat, so it doesn't flex. That's the problem I'm having. The head's flexing. That's why it's cracking. Aluminum, it's flexing. It literally cracks. Yeah. It's not like this, but it's just a minute amount. Every time you get into boost, that's a problem. I mean, I need to address that. That's what we got to figure out now. So, O-ring it, probably get another head, because that's just milled down too much. And I feel like it's just a really soft head. I'm kind of hesitant to use it. Again, like I was saying before, like if you have a cylinder head that hasn't been in use and hasn't had issues before, it's gonna be a nice like hard aluminum. You get what I mean? But once it's actually done a few cycles, it's had some issues, it'll actually make the aluminum softer. And aluminum's already a soft metal. Right. You know what I mean? So if the deck of the head is not perfectly like hard and like the way it needs to be, you're gonna have these issues. You know what I mean? So yeah, of course. Again, bottom end is fine. It took us like what, an hour and a half to do this, and we're fucking around. Going back is gonna take an hour. Cams are still in. I mean, I'm gonna assemble everything. If I take this head off, I'm just gonna basically take everything off and then reassemble everything on the bench and then put it back the same way that we have now. Right. So it's really not a big deal. It's a very straightforward process. Everything else is doing its job perfectly fine. We just need to get this taken care of, and this is a perfect opportunity to change some things around, go with a bigger turbo setup. I really want to do that. I'm thinking of the Super 99, so like a front-facing Super 99, and just keep it a mild, medium-high boost, not too high of a boost level. And another thing that I don't know if I mentioned or not, like, okay, you can get like really aggressive with the ignition timing, and the fuel, if you have good fuel, it'll take it, it won't detonate. But it doesn't matter you can have 1-inch studs, which are impossible. You can have 1-inch studs, and if you have too much fucking cylinder pressure, it's not gonna fucking hold it. So, you know, I'm not a professional tuner, but I do understand fucking dynamics of a combustion engine. It makes sense if it's, you know, too over advanced, which is not the tuner's fault. It's just, you know, it's the fact of the matter is we got to figure out what works with what setup. You know what I mean? This block from the beginning was shaved down like 12 thousandths, which is a lot, you know? And
yeah.
we're using pistons that are supposed to be 10.5 to 1 on a virgin block. This is not a virgin block. You know what I mean? And the head's milled down a lot. So guesstimating, I haven't CC'd the combustion chambers. I don't know, but guesstimating this is at least like an 11 to 1 motor. So there's a lot of pressure in the cylinders. You can't, you know, this isn't like an average build, you know what I mean? Like everything's like so different from like a normal block, you know what I mean? Like everything's just different. Like we gotta like work around this somehow.
Right.
And I feel like if we take like 2 or 3 degrees of timing out and, you know, compensate with some boost if I'm on the same turbo, or you know, get a bigger turbo and keep it a little lower.
Mm-hmm.
You also, another thing is that 45 psi of boost on a 6466 versus 45 psi of boost on a 72 millimeter, right? It's actually easier on the motor,
yeah,
with the bigger turbo,
right?
Because the turbo is more efficient. There's less back pressure. There's less heat going in the engine. You know what I mean? Because if you look at a compressor map, like what we're trying to do with this right now is like basically pushing the compressor map like off the chart, off of its like efficiency level. Versus a 72 millimeter at the same boost level is going to operate a lot more efficiently. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just because you have a bigger turbo and you're at the same amount of boost, it doesn't mean there's more load on the motor. If the bottom end is built properly, and if you have everything else to basically like go hand in hand, you shouldn't have any issues. Like I'm not going to have any issues. But again, we got to address this, and it's really my fault. It's nobody else's fault. I should have O-ringed it. I know I've said it like a few times. Last time I was going to O-ring it, I talked about it. And my machine shop's like, this gasket's very good, let's just use this. But this time around, I'm just gonna do it my way. I'm just gonna we're gonna O-ring it, and we're gonna do it properly again. But it did what it was supposed to do. I mean, this is making almost 900 on the Dyno jet. You know what I mean? And yeah, I have like 300 miles on it or something like that. And every single time I drove this car, I got on it like 10 times. So it's like, you know, the bottom end is doing what it's supposed to do. It's just we gotta figure out a way to fucking be able to keep the head on and not fuck this up. You know what I mean?
Right.
So again, I feel like this is a very good time to do that and go with a bigger intercooler. My fab guy Augie, he's actually gonna do a bumper exit for me, or a hood exit. I don't know yet. I have stock fuel lines, but I have a double bumper with 2 450s in it. So the fuel lines may be a limiting factor now. If I try to go bigger, it's obviously getting enough fuel. I think we're at like 90% injector duty or something like that. Or no, a little bit less, I think. I'm not sure, I forgot. But that's kind of the game plan now. Just gonna figure out what to do with the head. And also, I'm gonna try to come up with a plan so nobody cracks the combustion chambers anymore, because that's starting to piss me off. Almost every single Evo head that I've had, it's funny that nobody's like mentioned this on the forums or anything, but every single one of them, not just off of my car. I mean, I just took Jeff's off, and that thing made like 400 horsepower. That thing's cracking. You know what I mean? So something's going on there. I think we just have to like, you know, take a wire wheel and pretty much like smooth out the area that the spark plug goes into, like around that surrounding area.
Yeah.
Just so it doesn't have those, you know, sharp ridges and it doesn't stress crack. But I'm also thinking that if it's flexing, you can't really do anything about that. But I really think if I have an O-ring, it's gonna help the flexing situation a lot more. So yeah, that's where we're at right now. So Josh was asking me why, like, people on the dyno, whenever they do a pull, they put the car in neutral and they rev it. The revving is just a preference thing. You don't need to rev it. But the reason that you push in the clutch and you take it out of gear right away is because, let's say you do a pull at like 9,500 RPM, right? If you just let go of the clutch and you let go of the accelerator pedal, and you have, you know, the motor's at 9,500 RPM or whatever, and it's yanking down on the pins, the pistons are made out of aluminum. The pins and the rods are made out of steel. The pistons get really hot. So if you do that, you have a chance of actually yanking out the pins out of the pistons. And that's why even when you're doing the pull on the street, if you do it and if you don't, if you're not going to upshift and go to the next gear, you always take it out of gear. That's the reason you do that. You don't want to yank out the pins, because I've seen it happen. I mean, you can have the best wrist pins in the world and you can still do that because the aluminum pistons get really hot, and it's a weaker metal. It's just that's the reason why you don't basically just like let it rev hang and like just let go of it and just let it decelerate. You don't do that.
Right.
On a built motor, you don't do that. You can't do it, especially with heavier wrist pins. So Manley makes a 300 thousandths thick wrist pin, and I have a 250 thousandths wrist pin, and that's like the thickest one Carrillo offers actually, which is what I have in my setup. And it all goes back to your whole setup. Like, it's a compromise because Carrillo ones come with a 150 thousandths wrist pin. If I had that on my setup, it wouldn't have lasted one pull on the dyno, even at 30 pounds. It wouldn't have. But I have really thick pins. The downside to that is it's heavier. You know what I mean? Each one is like 300 grams or something, as opposed to the 150,000, which is like 150 grams. So there's more weight on the rotating assembly, which in the long run, beats up the bearings more. You know what I mean? It's all a compromise, bro. It's all a balance. Like you just gotta know what you're doing with the car. If you're building a motor and you're trying to make stupid amounts of power, it's obviously not going to last as long as a 500 horsepower car.
Right.
But in order to make that power, you need to put the parts in that basically like makes sense with what you're trying to do. The same thing goes with my head. Like, I should have O-ringed it a long time ago. I mean, it's even this, like, this is a learning process for all of us, even me. I mean, I've never had head gasket issues, but with the overbore and with my cylinder head, like I couldn't run an OEM gasket.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been trying to work around that this whole time. You know what I mean? Like, just everything has to make sense. That's why O-ringing is gonna make sense. Like you guys saw, the gasket, the folded stepper on the Kazi gasket actually made a nice imprint, but it still couldn't hold because the head's flexing. Hence why it's cracking at 1 and 4 on the on the valve seats.
Yeah.
The head's flexing, and the reason it's cracking over there and not anywhere else is because that's the weakest point on the cylinder head. That's the weakest point because it's really thin and there isn't a lot of material basically for it to basically be sturdy enough. So that's the first place that it flexes. Also, another thing is that anytime you crack or lift the head, if you look at the head and if you know what you're looking at, you will never see it happen next to a stud. It's always away from the stud. It's always furthest away from the stud because the stud is doing its job. It's holding it down. Mm-hmm. But it's some places that the stud doesn't have control over it that actually flex. It's just something you can't control. Like, you gotta do what you gotta do to make it work. I mean, like, I have to O-ring it. My friend's head over here that we looked at has an O-ring, and I have 4 other heads here, and they are all cracked at the same spot. So I don't know if this is like a revelation or something, but I'm pretty sure other people have noticed this before me. I mean, I'm not the first guy to fuck with Evos. I'm probably one of the last guys that fucks with these cars, but it's a real problem. And with the O-ring, I mean, that, like I said, that head's seen close to 50 pounds, I think, on the 64 millimeter, same setup as mine actually. But there's no cracks. There's no stress points that I can see, because the O-ring actually helps it seal. And how the O-ring works actually is basically they cut a groove around the combustion chamber and they put a stainless steel wire on it. The head's aluminum, but you put a stainless steel wire, and there's actually a protrusion. So the O-ring's obviously sticking out a little bit, and that protrusion can vary from 5 thousandths to up to 11 thousandths I've seen. It just depends on builder preference, the gasket you're using, if it's thin, if it's thick, all those things come into play. So if you're trying to O-ring a head, you got to make sure your machine shop's up to par with what you're trying to do. Mm-hmm. So that's how it works. I mean, that makes an imprint on the gasket, and basically seals it up even better. The Cosworth head gasket is literally the best gasket money can buy. There's that, and then there's the SCE Titan series gaskets that are the copper gaskets, and then Extreme Tuners makes like a carbon fiber one, I think, that has like carbon fiber rings. It's like a copper head gasket and then has like carbon fiber rings or something like that. Don't quote me on that. I'm not like 100% sure, but you know, you gotta use something that works. You know, like you gotta, if you're trying to make this much power, like you need to do your research and you gotta like be sure that what you're doing works. And you know, we're not trying to hide anything from anyone. You know, I'm not perfect. You know, I'm learning as we go too. You know what I mean? Because this isn't, I don't build 1,000 horsepower cars every day. You know what I mean? This is my toy. I'm experimenting with it. If it was a customer's car, I would have had an O-ringed head from the beginning, from the get-go.
Yeah.
But you know, now we know that it's flexing. Now that the head didn't actually lift like it did the first time with the JE head gasket, we can actually see like the head gasket made a nice imprint on the block, made a nice imprint on the head itself, but it was still having a hard time keeping itself straight. Which is, you know, it makes sense because the block is cast iron, the head is aluminum, so it's a softer metal. So if it gets too hot or the cylinder pressures are too extreme, the head is going to be the first to basically deflect. And that's exactly what we're seeing in the combustion chambers. I mean, you don't have to be a chemist or a fucking physicist to see that, you know what I mean? Like I can see on 1 and 4, it's cracking at the same spot that it was originally, the first head that I had. Which is it's kind of weird because it seems like that those cracks don't actually do much, as weird as it sounds. Like it doesn't actually compromise the head itself. Like you can still reuse it, so to speak, because when I took my car apart in the beginning, that like the first time around, you know, when we were just beginning this new build, it had no head gasket sealing issues, and that thing saw over 51 pounds in 5th gear. So, you know, again, it's all a learning process. Like, we're all learning together. We're gonna O-ring it. Gonna use the same studs, same head gasket, same thickness. I'm gonna copper spray it. You know, what do you call it? Probably a different head. Well, a different head, not probably. I'm gonna use a different head because I know for a fact that if I take this to my machine shop, if I take this to D-Sport, Mike's gonna put that tool on there and tell me that the metal is really soft and it's junk. He's done that like way too many times. But yeah, we're gonna get a new head for it. We're gonna have it O-ring for sure. And then so right now I'm in the process of selling the turbo kit, the 64mm, which has 300 miles on it. It's a perfect turbo. It doesn't burn any oil, doesn't do anything. It does what it's supposed to. And we are going to put a Super 99 on it, front facing. Either that or a 6870, but I really want a Super 99. I really want a 72mm. My fuel system might not be up to par with that, but you know, for now, even mild boost will make more power than what I'm making right now. Because I know for a fact I still have more in my fuel system that I can, you know, squeeze out a little bit more power. You know, it doesn't have to be all at once. We can do that, and then we can do the fuel system later on. You know, get the car running initially with the new head, with the new turbo setup. You know, get the we can do the fuel system later on. Go with like a dash 8 feed. You know, just the basics. Dash 8 feed that, you know, gets a Y from the fuel pump itself, fuel pumps, and like a dash 6 return. But you know, besides the little sealing issue that we're having, I mean, this car, I have done at least like 50 pulls now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the 300 miles that I drove it, I mean, it does what it's supposed to do. It's just, you know, we got to make sure it's perfectly fine. You know, and in the near future, if you know somebody wants to make, you know, the same amount of power, we know what to do. We know, you know, how to seal it up. We know how to basically not make any compromises when we're trying to make power. Because the whole point of this is to be able to push it to its limits and have it perfectly fine. So you can drive it anywhere, you can get on it whenever you want. That's the whole point of doing this. Like, that's, you know, that's why I'm doing this out of my own pocket. I'm trying to basically do all the experiments. You know, obviously this isn't planned. You know, this was supposed to be perfect, but you know, we're doing the experiments. This is trial and error. This is what's gonna basically, you know, make me better as an engine builder, because now I'm gonna know what to do and what not to do. Ideally, from the beginning, I should have gone with 1/2-inch studs. O-ring head. That was initially the plan from the beginning, but in all honesty, my machine shop told me not to do it. Which is kind of funny because it's still my choice, so I can't blame anybody for that, and I'm not doing that. You know, this is all me. So that's what we're gonna do. I mean, you know, now we know what works, what doesn't work, what gasket to use, what not to use. I will tell you though, if you have like a 20 over block, or if you have even a 40 over block, will actually work with the OEM head gasket. But the head that I had combustion chamber work, and the combustion chamber work basically made the combustion chambers a little wider, so I couldn't use the OEM head gasket on it, because when you would put the head gasket on the actual head, the gasket would be inside the combustion chamber a little bit, and you don't want that because that's like a fuse. Like if you ever detonate or anything bad happens, that like it'll literally shoot through and it'll actually lift the head. So
oh, geez.
I couldn't do that. I had an OEM head gasket too. Like even after I got the Cosy, I had an OEM head gasket, and I was super like excited to put that on. And then I brought the head and I put it down and I put the fucking gasket on it, and I'm like, okay, this is not gonna work. So the Cosworth did what it was supposed to do, but this time around we're gonna O-ring it and keep the head 100% stable. So
this is gonna have to do it for the Ronnie Built segment. This is his collection of heads, and
this is the personal stuff that I have. This doesn't belong to customers. That's my friends. The rest is mine. I don't know why.
No, new turbo coming soon.
New turbo coming soon, so we got to figure out whether it's going to be Super 99, like some Zoner rotor and that like Liga turbo, or 6870, but I want to do something bigger than that, so might as well step it up a little, you know, a little more. I mean, might as well, right? I mean, we're here anyway.
Yeah, pretty much. Just made it back home. Hope you guys enjoyed another segment with the Ronnie Built series. Again, the car is going to be up and running very soon. New turbo coming your guys' way, new intercooler, bigger everything, faster everything. It's truly honestly an inspiration every time I go and film these with Ronnie, just because the dude has never considered failure, like ever. Like stopping has never been an option for the guy, which like is just super admirable. I know plenty of people, as soon as struggle comes up or like something doesn't go as smooth or as planned, people throw in the towel, or people consider, like, they start weighing their options, you know, like whether it's worth it to continue or not. And Ronnie's not one of those people. It's just always like, oh, this came up, I'm gonna deal with it, boom, continue on. And like that's just like really like inspirational for me, especially because if you guys don't know, like when I first bought the Evo 9, like I tried to find like the cleanest Evo 9 I possibly could, and then basically when I had Ronnie go over the car, there was a lot more work and issues with the car that kind of I realized. I mean, it's an 11-year-old car, or over a decade old, I should say, and I knew that was going to need work, but I just wasn't aware of how much stuff costed for the Evo, just I guess how much it is to pay to play. But being around him and seeing how much money he's thrown at his car and how much time and patience and everything has been a huge inspiration to continue with my project, and which is why like I don't really feel so bad about it anymore. I definitely think it's time to show the car some love. I know that all of you guys have been long overdue and been waiting for it as well, just as much as I've been wanting to drive it. I know that you guys have been seeing me want me to drive it and mod it and build it and etc. So hopefully we can get that going for the month of March. I got school tomorrow, so I got to get set up for that, and I have to wake up at like 5-6 o'clock in the morning, which that's going to be interesting. But I will see you guys all in the next video. If you guys aren't subscribed to the channel already, please hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, help share the video. Ronnie's sharing information with you guys that no one on the internet is sharing about 4G63s or Evo stuff in general. So if you guys enjoy the Evo videos, be sure to give this video a like, because we want to share it. We want people to, you know, get on the bandwagon of just watching a 1,000 horsepower Evo in the making. And this isn't the only one either. There's multiple 1,000 horsepower Evos that are going to be built on this channel. So if you guys aren't tuned in already, you guys should, trust me. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.